I can hear you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Seneca County Board of Supervisors regular meeting for Tuesday, November 12th. We'll start by roll call of the members, please.
Supervisor Reynolds.
Here.
Supervisor Jeffrey Trout. Here. Supervisor Brownell.
Here.
Supervisor Latini.
Here.
Supervisor Forrest. Supervisor Hayes. Supervisor Schmitter.
Here. Supervisor
Cronenwetter.
Here.
Supervisor Reinhardt.
Here.
Supervisor Partee.
Here.
Supervisor Heisen. Supervisor Don Trout.
Here.
Supervisor Enslow.
Here.
Supervisor Shipley.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Please join us for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag, United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. First up, we're going to start with presentations. We have Jenny with Seneca Falls Library. I'd like to come up to the microphone, please. And you're going to use the slide, I believe, right?
We're going to show you a video, so I'm just going to talk briefly. We'll show the video, and then I can answer any questions that you have for me.
Okay.
So, good evening, everybody. I'm Jenny Burnett. I'm the Seneca Falls Library Director. I'm here tonight to thank you so much for your support last year of libraries. With your support, we've been able to serve over 96,000 patrons and save Seneca County residents over $4 million in services and items. I just thank you so much for helping us to really serve Seneca County and continue to grow our programs. And just thank you, and I hope you'll consider us for this next budget go-around. And the video is going to do a whole lot better of a job than I am at giving you all of the statistics that have come from all 4 libraries that have over 625 years of service in Seneca County. Thank you so much.
Okay. Heisen's chair, I guess.
We might have a dead battery here. Looks like we have a dead keyboard. I'm not tentative off. Might have to use a regular keyboard and plug it in over here.
You're not gonna stand throughout. Want a seat? Want a seat? Want a seat? You all right? Now you're talking. Have a seat. One right behind you.
Just waiting for another keyboard, folks.
Might be a long time.
Oh, there we go. I think I got it now. Yeah. What happened to the presentation for the library? It was on here this afternoon. There it is. No, was on the wrong Bluetooth settings.
Some of the best memories become stories. Our story begins with 5 libraries. Our story begins in 1875 and continues into the world of tomorrow. In 2023, our libraries created some of the most valuable and unique experiences our patrons have seen yet. Our visitor count increased to over 95,000. The Seneca County Library strive to encourage learning from all ages and walks of life, with a renewed focus on teens and adults in 2023. Highlights from Interlaken Library include Ted's Troop Storytime, and a new teen lab advisory group. Edith B. Ford Library has introduced a new youth and adult community engagement program and telehealth options. Seneca Falls Library has added a teen advisory board, manga book clubs, and safe space after-school programs. Highlights from the Waterloo Library include additional programming and new online magazine resources. The Lodi Whittier Library continues to support youth programming with its literacy hub and STEAM learning experiences. The Seneca County Libraries saw an overall rise in usage of materials in 2023, both online and in print. Patrons had access to over 277,000 items and borrowed over 170,000. What's next for library patrons in Seneca County? In 2024 and 2025, Seneca County Libraries will be adding a variety of services, including a library of things at Seneca Falls Library, fine arts for all programming at Ovid Library, and increased programming is in the works for all Seneca County libraries. The Seneca County Libraries have provided a combined 625 years of service to their communities, creating a place where everyone is invited, everyone is welcome, everyone is part of our libraries. What is the value of our libraries and the memories they have created for their patrons? In 2023, the estimated value of services provided by the 5 Seneca County Libraries was $4,454,812, according to loveyourlibrary.org. Thank you for your support in building a better future for all of Seneca County. Thank you for supporting our libraries.
Again, thank you so much for your support and for waiting through technical difficulties for me. Is there anything I can answer for anyone at this point in time?
I have a question.
Sure.
Before with the reports, there was a lot of people coming in for internet connections and that weren't available to them. Have you seen an increase or a decrease in that?
We've seen an increase, and actually at this point, all 5 of the libraries support internet access outside of the library outside of library hours. So like if you do have to drive up, you can still access. I will say digital services have gone up, but they are not as high as 2020 levels. And most of the libraries, I think at least 3 of us have actually increased bandwidth within the past 3 years to Cat 6 so that we can handle a bigger load as far as the Wi-Fi capacity goes.
So if the library isn't open, they can still pull up outside.
Absolutely.
How many, do you know, I mean, not an exact number, but how close do they need to get to be able to access the Wi-Fi?
It depends on the building. So at my library, we have a Meraki. Usually I have to be within about 25 feet of the building. So it covers our entire parking lot at this time. The Ovid Library actually covers the entire downtown area.
So follow-up question to that, is there a place, like, if it's raining or, you know, stuff like that, that they can get out of the weather if they're maybe on foot, not in a car?
Depends on the library. At my library, there's a few overhanging areas, but nothing substantial. I believe at Interlaken Library, there is no place. At Lodi Library, there is a small overhang that actually is used for the Amish folks. And I'm unsure about Ovid. Last I knew there was nothing there.
Should we put a plan together for better areas like that, closer to libraries?
I think that would be exceedingly helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Next, we have Emily. Next, we have Emily, Deputy Executive Director for Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning.
You're the public hearing one? Okay. Yeah, yep. Yep.
Thank you for the opportunity to present on the draft local solid waste management plan for Seneca County. The Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council began this planning effort on behalf of Seneca County. I'm Emily Royce, Deputy Director, and this is Rachel Scudder, one of our planners. And we worked on the plan with New York Pollution Prevention Institute for specific sections of the plan as well. Local solid waste management plans are created through New York State DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation guidance. A local solid waste management plan is a valuable tool for the organization and decision-making process for solid waste management of the municipalities in New York State. It is an instrument intended to evaluate the current solid waste management practices, evaluate the options and alternatives available for future solid waste management, and to set forth the implementation steps for a 10-year planning period, along with establishing projections of reduction in waste disposal over the 10-year plan. An overarching goal of a local solid waste management plan is to reduce the amount of solid waste destined for disposal by preventing its generation and increasing reuse, recycling, composting, and other organic material recycling methods. The DEC's guidance covers 3 areas: assessment of current conditions, evaluation of alternatives and selection of systems, and an implementation schedule and municipal solid waste projection. These 3 areas encompass the 7 actions you see on the screen, which was the framework used for this planning effort. The county came up with 3 goals for this plan. 1, to create a feasible and economic approach for future solid waste within the county. 2, to reduce the amount of solid waste generated throughout the county. And 3, to identify future and alternative options for solid waste outside of current landfills, as landfills are finite resources, however long the lifespan is. The first area is assessing the current state. This process involved data gathering through many methods to inform the rest of the plan. We gathered information from many sources through surveys, interviews, site visits, phone calls, and emails, as well as accessing already published information from the New York State DEC. Unfortunately, we came to understand that there are significant data gaps of generation numbers and information present. As such, all numbers moving forward are not the full representation. We gathered as much data as we could get from local trash haulers, school districts, transfer stations, and annual reporting forms for local land application companies, and more. On the screen is a table of solid waste facilities within Seneca County as gathered through the previously mentioned methods. These include landfills, scrapyards, wastewater treatment plants, transfer stations, and some agriculture and septic companies. As you can see on the table, which is in the local solid waste management plan as well, there are both public and private facilities processing a host of waste types and the annual tonnage received if available. With the goal of reducing the amount of waste going to landfills over the next 10 years, we gathered data on what and how much waste is currently generated within Seneca County and how much of that is already being diverted. It is worth noting that this is not a complete snapshot of all waste actually generated and actually diverted. There are gaps in this data. From the data we did gather, Seneca County generated 62,531 tons of waste and diverted 38% of that. The pie chart on the left is a breakdown of the over 60,000 tons of waste generated. Construction and demolition debris make up 43% of that. Municipal solid waste is 23%, or 28%, excuse me. 23% is special waste, such as septage, tires, household hazardous waste, electronics, and scrap metal. 4% of the waste generated is organic material, and 2% of the waste generated is recycling. The pie chart on the right is a breakdown of the 38% of waste currently being diverted. 46% is special waste, 39% is the construction and demolition waste, 9% is organic materials being diverted, and 6% of total diverted waste is recycling. Once the current state assessment was completed, we moved into the second area, looking at alternatives as required and specified by the state.
Thanks, Emily. With the help of the Pollution Prevention Institute, we examined technological and programmatic alternatives and enhancements that the county could utilize to A, decrease the amount of waste disposed of, and B, increase the reduction in recycling and recovery of reusable materials. Some of the alternative technologies and methods that were examined during the process were mixed municipal solid waste composting, anaerobic digestion, pyrolysis and gasification, ethanol production, exportation of waste, and the idea of a new landfill. Sectors were examined into biosolids, construction and demolition debris, and industrial waste. Programs that were examined included recyclables, organics, and waste reduction. After the identification of all methods of alternatives for the county, and given the current county and community-wide programs and capacity, we then worked on creating feasible implementation strategies that the county can take on. Some, but not all, of the implementation strategies for recycling and waste reduction includes conducting a county-wide waste audit, expansion of a county-wide waste reduction education campaigns, and the creation of a program for public places and events to aid in recycling of materials. For the reduction of organic waste, this includes the creation of a countywide organics reduction strategy, an examination of residential and business food waste reduction and composting, vetting, supporting, and expanding new technologies in the county that can help divert organic waste. Additional diversion actions for construction and demolition included supporting existing salvage, resale, and reuse efforts, establishing a construction and demolition policy for municipal projects, and the collection of reusable construction and demolition materials. And finally, for the industrial sector, strategies included collaboration with industry partners on waste education and working with local champions that can be an example for the county and other industries moving forward.
We thank you for your time. The public comment period closes on November 15th. The next step of the process, we will draft a responsiveness summary to the public comments, and after a final review with the county, we will submit the draft local solid waste management plan to the state for their review and feedback. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
Question.
Supervisor Trout.
Thank you. How many of these waste management plans have Genesee Finger Lakes put together, authored?
We've worked on two.
Two. And how up-to-date would you say the information is? That it sounded like you had some trouble gathering some information. Mm-hmm. How up-to-date do you think? As the authors, are you pleased with the level of information, quantity and the quality in terms of it being up-to-date?
Yeah, I believe the numbers that we used were up to date. It's just more like sector gaps that we ran into. So part of the strategies for the implementation is, building out a better data gathering network so that you have real numbers to work from. These are definitely real numbers, but they're not the whole picture.
Right.
And I don't know with waste that you necessarily will ever have the whole picture with backyard composting and stuff like that. It's not captured.
What do you think, in your estimation, is the biggest gap of information? Like if you could say, hey, I need this, then it would be a better product, more complete, not better.
There's no one huge chunk. It's little dribs and drabs across the various sectors. So, but.
And just to add to that, I think part of the process is, updating this plan as well. And if you're continuously, updating this plan and asking for this information, then you're going to get better quality data because the people who you're asking it from will be used to answering those emails and phone calls. And
And is that, would you recommend, is that something we would assign at the county to do, or would it be a third party like yourself?
it would be, up to you all, I think, to
Yeah,
decide
I
that.
think
Yeah.
either would function very simply.
I just, and I have no clue, we just may not have the capacity to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Supervisor
One more.
Brown?
Last time we discussed this, we were talking about the biodigesters down at Cornell and stuff like that, and the cleanliness as time goes on, what the feasibility would be without creating more of a monster, bacterially and different things like that. And though this isn't exactly specific, when you do talk about biodigestion and things like that, I would assume that we would have to associate those biodigesters into this equation at some point, if they're worth it, so, I mean, going forward, I would like to see more about that, just as far as that part of the plan's concerned, and then not just the process of it, but like long-term feasibility. Can you actually clean them without creating more of a problem by cleaning them? And then if you don't clean them, my God, what happens then, right? Just that part of it, I want to see more about, because I think that's a key element in dealing with waste.
Supervisor Trout, who runs that in Ithaca?
I'm not sure. I thought Cornell University was running it for a while, but then heard they got a second one. It's just more along the lines of what people tell me. I know that it exists. That's what I know, but I'd like to know a lot more about it.
Supervisor Trout?
To that point, I'm like, would you, as part of the final phase of this in terms of recommendations and such, would you be sharing with us models of others that you think are particularly successful and we might want to emulate?
If the interest is there, yeah. If there's various implementation actions, we absolutely would provide models.
Well, it's like, why reinvent the wheel
Exactly,
necessarily?
yep.
We have to make it appropriate to our circumstances, but if there's something out there that works and is good,
Absolutely.
I would like that if,
Thank you.
Supervisor Partee?
Public comment closes on November 15th. I'm assuming that this board will be adopting some kind of resolution to accept the plan before it gets filed with the state. Is that correct?
Yes. So the state reviews it and provides feedback and any edits that they need covered. And then, so there's kind of a back and forth that goes along with it. So,
Okay.
yeah, we'll provide you the exact next steps that happen.
And if there's any municipality that knows there's updates that weren't current when you did your investigation, but now changes have occurred, is there time to edit this?
We can review the data, yes, absolutely. Yep. Thank you.
Supervisor Cronwiller?
Do you have, right off the hand, Department of the DEC or a name where this public comment should go to, so everybody in this room knows where to send their comments? What department of the DEC?
Oh, I mean, the public comment period, the comments come to the county, and then we create a responsiveness summary as specified by the DEC's framework.
And then,
The DEC, I think it's their solid waste division that handles all the local solid waste management plans.
all right, thank you.
but just a process question. The comments don't go to you first in terms of incorporating into the plan, or do they go directly to the DEC?
Oh, no, they come to the county first,
Okay.
then we
That's
review
what
them.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, the public will get, the public's not ready yet. You'll have an opportunity. Yep, thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, next up, we have a presentation on the tentative 2025 budget from our Finance Director, Julie Bubb. You could join us. A couple things on the budget. The tentative budget that'll be presented tonight. Timeline, I think, is important to everybody know. Typically, the budget is prepared and delivered to the board by the county manager. In the absence of the county manager, I had established a little while ago a budget task force to work with me, so I wasn't working alone. And over the course of the months that we've been working on it, We've had a lot of meetings, working with the finance department, working with all the directors, and trying to whittle down and get to this point you're going to see tonight. What you're going to see tonight, we've already shedded $5 million off. There's a packet on your desk, and then there's a presentation on your desk. So once we get the presentation tonight, everybody has a chance to go through this and build a list of questions or concerns or comments. We can talk about them at the next committee meeting, and on top of that, we can establish, if everybody wishes, we can have another meeting in between before December 10th to go over it. But there was a lot of willing down and cuts to get to this point. Like I said, we already shedded $5 million off, and it's tough. This year it's difficult. The problem started a long time ago to get to this point. We have to try to right the ship now, and that's where we're at. So, Julie?
Thank you, Chairman. So as the chairman indicated, we started the process through department heads preparing and submitting their 2025 line item requests. Personnel assisted with the wages and benefits as they incorporated with the different benefit plans. Some of the priorities that we've included in the overall 2025 tentative budget to increase investment in the Office of the Sheriff to continue to address safety needs within the community. Our Public Health, Mental Health, Office for Aging, and Department of Human Services to continue to assist our most vulnerable populations. Employees by offering the competitive wages and benefits to provide those services and improve service delivery. And partnerships with community organizations to provide services to invest our county funds in operations and programs that maximize the benefit to our residents. As was indicated by the libraries as a presentation earlier tonight, as well as one of the key areas that the board had invested in the Grow Seneca funding initiative in the 2024. I have a couple graphs of historical information from 2025. So this is from 2014 through 2025. The equalized full value tax rate as a dollar amount per $1,000 of assessment. From historical in 2014, we were at $5.41. The proposed 2025 budget brings the equalized full value tax rate to $4.19 per $1,000 of assessed value. The tax levy in 2014 was $9.5 million, has increased very little from throughout the last 10 years. This is where, as the chairman was indicating, we started this budget process from the directors. This was over $19 million. We've cut it down to tax levy of $14.5 million. And the general fund appropriations, so that same time period from 2014, we were at $57.5 million. In the proposed 2025 budget, we're at $96.5 million. So over the course of that time, we've had a 68% increase in general fund appropriations, with only a 53% increase with this proposed budget in the tax levy. This is showing over the period of 2001 to 2025, the historical budget for the general appropriations. So again, in 2001, where we were at, costs continue to rise. We've seen that since COVID. They've risen significantly, as with everyone has, and with inflation, with majority of those costs being wages and benefits, but as well as other commodities. Utilities go up, all the other costs that we consult with, consultants. So trends, the tax levy and general appropriations. So this is just a chart showing the tax levy in the blue, where that's kind of at the beginning in 2002 to around 2012. They're running pretty consistent. You would expect them to stay pretty consistent. Then we start to see a gap spread. The tax levy stayed pretty steady, while the general appropriations and the spending continue to increase much farther than ahead of where the tax levy was. Again, just another perspective showing that as the equalized full tax value rate, we were at over $6 per $1,000 of assessed value back in 2001, 2002. And then that steadily
kept along, decreased a little bit, and then continued to decrease even though our tax levy stayed at the same level.
Move them up where?
Is that better? Okay. And again, there's a similar one showing the general appropriations as it's gone up over the course of time compared to our sales tax revenue that stayed pretty steady. That's increased some, but we were about 32 million over the last year, and then the tax levy staying pretty flat. So the highlights of the 2025 budget. The 2025 recommended all funds budget is just over $112 million. It's an 8.5% increase, or an increase of $8.7 million. The general fund budget is $96.5 million, an increase of 9.1%, an $8 million increase as that as well. This includes a recommended tax reduction reserve allocation of using $7 million from that reserve, and adjusting the property tax levy to $14.52 million, up from $11 million, $11.07 million in 2024, which is an increase of $3.4 million, or 31%. That would make the tax rate increase from $3.33 in 2024 to $4.19 per thousand in 2025, a 25% increase, or 86 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. Again, bringing back to the chairman's earlier comment where we were at $19 million with this at the beginning of this process, that would have been an equalized full value rate of $5.67. So we've brought that down considerably over the course of the last few weeks. The median tax levy impact for Seneca County residential households. So the increase from the $3.33 to $4.19, based on a median residential household in Seneca County being assessed at $130,000, without an assessment change from 2024, would result in a net county annual tax increase of $111.80. Next is showing you the breakdown of the budget by fund. So again, bringing back the general fund is the largest portion of the budget, the $96.5 million. That's going up 9.1%, or the $8 million. In the breakdown of each of the different funds, I won't go through the numbers individually. In the total budget increase of $8.7 million, overall 8.5% increase. Any questions so far as we go along with the regards to the funds? The next piece is showing some of the key areas. So looking at the real property tax, which is the levy amount, where we were at in 23, 24 budget, and 25 budget. So again, showing the increase of the $3.4 million in the overall levy. Our pilots, our payments in lieu of taxes, have stayed pretty steady at $350,000. Sales and use tax, so again, we had a larger amount than expected in 2023. Our actual is $33.3 million. In the 24 budget, we did $32.5 million, and we're running within 1% of that right now. We're just under 1% of where we were last year. So we did increase that slightly by $500,000 to put $33 million into the 2025 budget as anticipated revenue. Hotel and motel tax, the occupancy tax, that helps to fund some of the other areas like the chamber and other community organizations. That's based on our calculations from the actuals, so we have budgeting $735,000 for that in 2025. Casino and gaming revenue, it stayed pretty consistent with where we've been. Last year we ended at $2.4 million. In the 24 budget, it's set at 2.5, so we are right in line with that right now. We did budget a slight increase to 2.6 million as part of the helping to balance the budget for the 25 period. Salaries and benefits, as you can see, are going to be some of the largest increases of that. Combined total salaries are growing from the 24 budget of 32 million to 35 million in the 25 budget. An increase from our actual in 23 of 27.9 million. So that's actually a larger increase from the actuals from 2 years ago compared to just the budget to budget increase, as well as combined total benefits. Total benefits increasing from the budget perspective by just $1 million, but over the last 2 years from the actual to the 25 budget have increased by $4 million. So just as a couple of numbers as a side, our health insurance benefits increased by 14% for the county's contribution, as well as retirement being a double-digit increase in the percentage increase. And then breaking down some of the other high areas, utilities, again, we're relatively flat in that area. We've had that pretty steady this year, but it is still an increase looking at back over the 23 actual to the 25 budget. Questions on those key areas? So as I mentioned, the biggest significant drivers of the increased budget, wages and fringes. Overall, it's a 7% increase over last year's budget. And again, health insurance and retirement being some of the largest drivers within that area. There's $1.4 million in vehicle leases and purchases, $1 million for one of the major projects that's included in the budget, a little over $169,000 for a new and other reclassified positions that were not in the 2024 budget. We have an increase in our Medicaid local share, as well as an increase in the contingency. In the 24 budget, the contingency amount was only $250,000, which is much lower than it has been historically for the county budget. So we did increase that to $750,000 for the 25 budget. This next one is a chart showing the breakdown of that tax levy amount as a percentage by the departments. Historically, over the last 3 years, sheriffs, including the jail, it has been the highest portion of the county's budget, 27%. DHS, Department of Human Services, and the workforce, 19% of it. Highway at 8%. Facilities, 7%. Public health and emergency management, just over 5%. And then other programs that all are lumped together in the under 5% that make up the remaining 29% of the overall budget. Funding for the affiliate organizations. So from 2021 through 2025, we've continued to increase our support to community organizations, including Soil and Water Conservation, Cornell Cooperative Extension, the library systems, and other local area community organizations. So in 22, it was a 7% increase, 24% increase in 2023, 3% in 24, and we're budgeting a 4.9% increase, a total of $1.3 million in the 25 budget. Some of the biggest challenges are unfunded mandates, and so mandated services that we're required to provide, but again, with relatively flat revenue or no revenue coming in for those. So our Medicaid program, probation, the operation of the jail, public defender's office, assigned counsel, our other social service programs, mental health, early intervention, and our preschool services serving children ages 3 to 5. So some of the items that we took a look at when we started with this, being at the tax levy, looking at that $19 million number to bring that down, we looked at utilizing additional funds from our highway funds. So we worked with our highway superintendent to use $800,000 from the fund balance to help with purchases of vehicles that are needed in that area. We used additional dollars from the tax reduction reserve of $1.6 million. The last item that we bring it to is the levy increase, the 3.4 million. So we tried to do all these other pieces before we get to that final number of what that would be. Budgeting increased sales tax, we had kept it flat at 32.5. We made the decision to increase that to 33 million to take the burden off of the tax levy. And budgeting increased interest earnings and interest gaming revenues of $100,000 each, as well as cost reduction discussions that the chairman and the task force had with different department heads to help work together to bring down the overall tax increase that the county was looking at. Any questions so far? And some of the other factors that we need to consider as we're going into 2025. So things that could have an impact in this budget as we are in 25 is sales tax revenues. Again, we're very steady with where we are at compared to what we had budgeted this year, again, within 1%, so that's a very slim margin. Construction and project costs as the different events come up that we need to be looking to do for our buildings. What may come with the next year's budget for New York State. Budget deficits that's an area that we have as a concern for new mandates that may be put in place. And ongoing labor negotiation discussions. We do have 3 that, one per year for over the next 3 years, so that's continue to increase the overall county budget.
Questions, Supervisor Trout?
Thank you, and thank you, Julie, for your work. So a couple questions. One, do you have any idea, like, the mandated services, like what percentage of the budget that is, or?
We weren't able to calculate that this year. That's one of our goals for next year, to get that exact number. But it is a large portion of that when you're factoring into the county cost numbers that are there for the jail, for mental health, for Department of Human Services, Office for the Aging.
Well, it got me thinking. I was recently at an ag tour in Madison County, and there was a representative from Cayuga County there, and he had said that roughly 80% of their budget is mandated. So that doesn't give us a lot of wiggle to do everything else. I guess the other question is, and I know you're new, this is not about you per se, this is just something. When I came in three years ago, we soon be 4 years ago, I kept hammering on a long-term plan, because as my calculator tells me, so in 2001, you said it was roughly $6 per thousand. So if we just go by inflation, right, and this is more for the board's consumption, because I do it every single year when we talk about a budget. So since that time, inflation's gone up 78%, roughly. So that would be so the equivalent tax rate would be $10.69. I'm not saying that's what it should be by any stretch, because obviously boards made a decision to temper that based upon the needed revenue at the time. But it does speak to my concern, and why I'm hoping we're going to work on a long-term plan, is because when you look at what the rate was, where it is now, so prior boards, and even this board to some degree, made decisions to reduce the tax rate. Right? You can see it in your chart you put together. That's wonderful, right? As a landowner, I can appreciate that. However, then it puts us in this position now where we're looking at a 25% increase in 1 year. So I would just ask the board to think about a long-term plan so that we're not hitting people with a huge double-digit increase all at once, but that we're projecting into the future. And with the town of Fayette, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not blaming anyone. I just would hope that we can put resources into doing some long-term forecasting so we don't have this kind of 1 year. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does that seem like Julie, you're professional, you've done a great job at this. Do you think that's a reasonable goal?
Absolutely, I think that's reasonable. I mean, that's part of some of the, being new to this position over the last few months is going through some of the trainings that the Office of State Comptroller offers. And that's part of the pieces that they're looking at. As you're looking at these pieces, that trying to keep steady and consistent. So if you're able to have a little bit that you don't need to put in that, to be able to put some aside for your reserves for future needs, exactly for those reasons, to help to try to steady the impact.
And I will say, I appreciate that, and I will say that, in the town, we're struggling with, we didn't put money away in reserves. We didn't have a healthy contingency fund. I mean, so I get at this level, which, it's much, much larger level, that it is difficult and a challenge. So I appreciate the work you did. I just hope you have my blessing to create a plan. Go do it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Supervisor Cronewater?
I just have a concern, more, not as much a question, but the population of Seneca County hasn't fluctuated more than a couple thousand in 40 years. And, our budgets have gone from 50 million to 100 million or some 100 employees to 700 employees. Like I said, the population hasn't fluctuated. It's just hard to grasp that a family of 5 has to adopt a county employee, 35,000 people in the county and 700 employees. So, the state-funded mandates, I understand, take up most of it. So maybe we should start with the state representation. Try something different. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Julie. Excellent presentation. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thanks.
All right. Ready to go back, Ernie?
We're the same, like with Ovid and Covert. We haven't reassessed in quite a few years. We're at 49%.
Has the sheriff's got their own budget in?
You ain't kidding.
All right. Well, everybody else is in here, so I don't understand. Every department is like a breakdown, codes, highway, probation, personnel. Everybody's in here but the sheriff's department.
Okay. Next up on the agenda, we have a public hearing.
Yeah, that's the main
Tonight's
reason
public hearing
it's in the budget.
is on the draft Seneca County Local Solid Waste Management Plan. A second to open that up?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor and open the public hearing?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, so the public hearing is now open. If anybody would like to speak on the solid waste management plan, now would be your time. Each person will have 5 minutes. Please state your name and where you're from, please.
Joseph Campbell, Town of Hector, Schuyler County. And I want to thank the chairman and members of the board for the opportunity to speak. As I said, my name is Joseph Campbell. I'm president and co-founder of Seneca Lake Guardian. And I'm here to urge the board to take a hard look at Seneca County's draft local solid waste management plan. The plan as it stands is simply not comprehensive enough. It's a plan that clings to outdated practices and one that fails, with all due respect, one that falls short of protecting the health, the economy, and the future of the Finger Lakes. Seneca County has the unique opportunity, indeed the responsibility, to lead the way toward a sustainable zero-waste future. It's time we seize this chance. This is about more than just a landfill. Seneca Meadows, as we all know, is set to close in 2025. To assume it will remain open beyond then is a disservice to local residents, particularly those who've borne the brunt of pollution and environmental and health risks for far too long. These people deserve better, and the county has the power and the duty to make a choice for a healthier future. Are we going to double down on a status quo that sacrifices community well-being? Or are we going to forge a path towards sustainability and waste reduction? That's the question. New York State has given us a roadmap. The latest state solid waste management plan sets ambitious goals for a circular economy, one where waste isn't just something to be buried or burned, but a resource to be reused. The state aims to reduce landfill use by 85% by 2050, but this plan lacks that vision and falls short. This plan chose inaction over progress, and that's not what Seneca County should stand for. We must strive to align the county's future with these statewide goals. We host the largest landfill in New York that imports trash from all across New York State and beyond. We owe it to ourselves and to the rest of New York to be a leader and to show that a zero-waste future is possible. Zero-waste programs offer more than environmental benefits. They create good local jobs. Recycling generates 9 times as many jobs as landfilling. Compost, twice as many jobs. And reuse programs can create 30 times more jobs. Imagine that. 30 times more jobs right here in Seneca County. In fields that build on the community's strengths, that respects our environment, and aligns with our region's character. We should be investing in these programs, not in landfills that are poisoning our neighbors. Think about our beautiful Finger Lakes region. This is a tourism and agricultural powerhouse. It's what we're known for. What drives our local economy and what supports 60,000 jobs across the Finger Lakes and $3 billion of economic activity. Do we want to be remembered as a world-class destination or as a dumping ground? We can't have both. We must pivot to sustainable practices that reflect who we are and protect what we value. And we must protect those among us who have suffered the most from the status quo. Many of our neighbors live in areas designated as disadvantaged communities, communities that have endured environmental and health harms because of their proximity to Seneca Meadows landfill. These residents deserve our help in lightening the load they've carried for far too long. They have the right to breathe clean air and to have safe water. We owe it to them to act, to finally put them and their needs first. This is a moment for Seneca County to lead. The very idea of waste as we know it has to change. Instead of a throwaway culture that simply buries useful resources, we should be capturing their value, reusing and recycling materials, and transforming what we once called waste into a sustainable economic engine for Seneca County. A circular economy is not only possible, it's a future that benefits everyone. Seneca County should be a model for this shift. This is a defining moment. We urge you, the Board of Supervisors, to take Seneca County back to the drawing board and reject a plan that fails to secure a healthy future. Stand up for a vibrant community that's built on sustainable practices. Let's close Seneca Meadows. Let's invest in composting, recycling, and other zero-waste programs. And let's create a plan that ensures a healthier, more prosperous future for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Valerie Sandless, a resident of Seneca Falls. And I would like to begin by sincerely thanking you for drafting this plan. As a few of you know, I've been pestering you for years and years about this, and I appreciate the fact that you have a draft. I do believe, as Joseph indicated, that it does fall short of not only New York State's goals, but I would say our environmental goals as a community. So what I'd like to give each of you is a copy of the waste that's distributed throughout New York State. It doesn't include out-of-state trash. So while you take a quick look at the graph, focusing on the positive aspects of the plan, I'm glad that it does focus on recycling, composting, and waste diversion. However, it does fall dramatically short of New York State's goal of increasing waste diversion, which wants recycling rates to reach 40% by 2030. It seems like a lofty goal, but it's because neither Seneca County nor, quite frankly, the New York State DEC has bothered to implement any of this. Statewide, it's a flawed situation. Seneca County's goal should align with that. We should increase our recycling, and we should try to get it together before 2030, quite frankly. The biggest flaw, in my opinion, with the proposed plan is that it does not acknowledge the fact that Seneca Meadows could possibly be closed. We know that the DEC is looking at continuing granting its extension or not, expansion. We don't have that data. We don't have that information. We don't know what they're going to do. So to assume that our waste should be taken to Seneca Meadows is, I think, flawed. We really do need to consider alternate situations. If you do take a look at the graph, in my opinion, it's a shocking visual of New York State's waste. We happen to be Region 8 in the New York State DEC. As I said, we also import garbage. This graph does not indicate that. So this is New York State's garbage. Let's look at our, downstate. Regions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a little bit going up in maybe 5 and 6. It's been reduced a bit in Region 9, which is west of us. But let's look at this. Almost all of the waste comes to us. I mean, we need to say no to that. We need to call and repeatedly call. Like, me calling and talking to them isn't obviously doing a lot of good. Some of you have heard me say this before. I do communicate relatively regularly with Region 8 DEC. I'm not an elected official. And this waste management plan is your chance to tell New York State that we are not going to be dumped on anymore. I will verify and double check this. I forget the actual number of landfills in Region 8. It's either 11 or 12, with ours being the largest. And we know we have the 3 largest landfills in Region 8. So honestly, I think it's time for all of you to stand with many of us, but especially stand for our children. If you represent Seneca Falls, if you represent Waterloo, if you represent Tyre, if you represent Junius, your students, your children, your grandchildren go to Seneca Falls or Waterloo schools, some of which are less than a mile away from the landfill.
Sorry, ma'am, you're out of time.
Okay, most of which are closer. Anyway, it's time to be responsible, and really, you need to put the closure of Seneca Meadows in the solid waste management plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we ask her a question?
If you would like to. I mean,
My name is David Winters. I'm from Ovid, New York. And just to let you know, I'm not a robot. My wife and I, we plan trips in this area around weather conditions. And mainly the wind. That's who we are. I don't know if there's others that do such a thing. But we also sparingly eat at restaurants knowing that, the possibility of the water issues around here. First, I want to thank all those present who have decided to put your hat into the arena of public servants. I know a lot of you that this wasn't the main issue in your thought process when you entered into supervising. But I do know that the ones I do know put a lot of time and energy, an admirable amount of time and energy into the vision that has gotten them elected, and we're thankful for that. Last meeting, October 22nd, I came here for the DEC environmental impact issue, and there was a lot of things I was very surprised. And some things I said, I knew I had to say something, so just off the cuff I said things, and some of them were very ignorant. And so now I've learned a little more, I've done a little more research, realizing how we've got to this place, the original landowner, then sold eventually to another contractor landowner, sold to a Canadian company, and now a Texas company that has lots of nice buffers far away, and even the DEC has lots of nice buffers to actually connecting with them. But first, one of the things I realized is that this group here really doesn't have a huge say, or at least you think you don't, in what goes on here. And I was surprised about that. Second, I was shocked at the turnout. I figured there would be hundreds of people and this would be too small of a place. And I was shocked also for a lot of the ones that stood up here and said something were from more the southern part of the region, even from Burdett, which is Schuyler County, I guess it is. And so I was surprised at the small turnout. And, so that's one thing I can't understand. There wasn't very many that were, right close, either worked or lived near the fragrant slopes of the mountain here. And third, there was two young gentlemen that came here. One was from Germany. He was just visiting, and some of you who are here will remember. And I could see when he got up here, his friend who he was with visiting, who's lived here for just a short period of time, was surprised as Germany buddy getting up here and addressing us. But one of the things he said, he couldn't believe that this was an issue in a developed country, he called it. We would call it a non-third world country, because in Germany, they recycle everything. So it's nice to see that you're considering such things, because as long as we provide a rug to sweep this stuff under, there won't be incentive, there won't be financial incentive to do what is the more prudent thing to do in recycling. And so this gentleman shared some of that, and that was an eye-opener. And so I know that this train that has now been allowed to hit the tracks, it's not like we can say at the end of this week, you're done. There's so much that goes in for them now, even to have it end now, they got to find another place. They got to find an ignorant community that doesn't realize what they're saying when they're saying yes to just starting even a little tiny dump. And so I recognize all these things, but that's just some of the concerns I have. And I really liked what the last lady had to say, that there are some resolve that we can do, because one of the things that person from Germany said and his friend said is that in all their conversations, and they said 80 plus ended up in the dumps, because when you got that mountain there, your conversations many times will end up talking about the mountain, especially being new in the area. And he said none of them said they were happy or there was something positive about this growing mountain from all of the Northeast and some from Canada. And so with that, as representatives of this community, I can't see how we have any incentive to not at least do some kind of, action that will say this is it. 2025, this is it. Because everything I've heard here now is really saying this is going to continue forever. Seneca Falls legacy will not be, the beginning of the women. It will be, we were the largest solid waste management collection place in New York State. And that's not what the community wants, but I am surprised also at the lack of show. So just an encouragement. Let's do something that will change the legacy of this place, because some of the effects we probably don't even know. And what will happen when we do know the effects? How can we undo it with that constant stuff breaking down this beautiful clay bowl that's underneath? Is there stuff that will work its way through there? How will we ever? What do? Dig up the whole dump, move it aside, fix the hole, and then put it all back? I mean, there's just so many things.
Sir, you're out of time. Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to address Public comment.
Hi there. The USS Nimitz weighs 97,000 tons when it's underway.
Sir, can we have your name, where you're from?
Oh, I'm sorry. Donald McCarthy. I live in the hamlet of Romulus in the town of Varick.
Thank you.
Nimitz, 97,000 tons. Big, really big ship. The trash rate, if it keeps going for the next 10 years, will be 259,559.2 tons. That's a lot. It sounds like the Incredible Hulk's 1 rep max bench press. It is a ridiculous amount of garbage. It will be here forever. We're talking geologic time. It is not a matter of if it will leak into the environment. It is a matter of when and how bad it will be. We're talking about groundwater. We're talking about air. When I got out of my car at Walmart, just over there, I gagged because the air was still, and there was nothing to blow the smell of the perfume or the garbage. But I repeat myself, if you can smell the landfill, there's something wrong. This has to stop. We can't undo the damage. The only thing we can do at this point is mitigate the damage. Adding 25,000 plus tons per year for the foreseeable future, and that is only the next 10 years. In another 10 years, we will be having the same conversation about how the landfill will be extended for another 10 years. This has to stop. It cannot continue. That's it. There is more important things than piling up New York City's garbage. A city that will be, in the not-too-distant future, inundated by storm surge and rendered probably uninhabitable. Those are the things we have to keep in mind. Those are the things we have to consider. Not how much more garbage we can pile in, but how much harm reduction we can do, how much damage mitigation we can do. How long can we put off that giant garbage can from leaking? That's what we have to be thinking about. And the fact that the DNC and anybody we could conceivably yell at about this issue is so remote that none of their names are even mentioned in this meeting. These are the people who will be making decisions regarding the rest of our lives and the lives of all of our ancestors. All of our descendants, I mean. Sorry, not a public speaker. We seem to have no idea who these people are or what they're going to be doing with our lives. That has to stop. I mean, we can talk about unfunded mandates. Oh, brother, could we talk about unfunded mandates. But I think right now the important issue is dealing with the landfill, which is something we can do in the immediate future. There was supposed to be some kind of environmental impact study that's going to be done regarding the landfill, which is going to be ready conveniently after the landfill approval process is completed. That's not an acceptable order of operation. If they cannot provide us with the information that we need, they don't get the landfill. I think that's enough. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Elaine Peckham. I'm a full-time resident of Seneca County. I reside in the town of Lodi, and I live directly on Seneca Lake on Lower Lake Road. I want to thank the chairman and the county supervisors for allowing me to speak today. I have read the proposed draft of the Solid Waste Management Plan. It's over 64 pages. And I would like to respectfully request that it be edited to remove the premise that the Seneca Meadows landfill remains open. I ask that you revise the plan to seek an alternative to SMI and to protect our public health. We must put our families first and protect our lakes, Cayuga as well, and our environment. Frankly, SMI must close, and your plan needs to address that. As a resident of Lodi, I feel I have been overlooked. I'm halfway down that lake. I've requested my local town board of Lodi to rescind a resolution they passed in this past February of 2024, and it was resolution number 2024-13, in support of the Seneca Meadows expansion. And since that resolution, stakeholders of Lodi, people who live, work, own a business, vote, or pay taxes in the village/town of Lodi gathered to sign a petition requesting the town board of Lodi to rescind their support of the SMI expansion. To date, the town board has not rescinded their support, and a majority on the board have not listened to the people they represent. We now have over 300 names that we have shared with our local town board of Lodi, and I am willing to provide you copies tonight if you'd like them. Originals are located in the town clerk's office at Lodi. So again, I ask that you revise the draft plan for solid waste management in Seneca County to recognize the closure of that facility. And as you revise your draft plan, I humbly ask you, will you listen to the stakeholders of Lodi, located here in Seneca County, halfway down that lake, who do not want to support SMI? Can you hear us? Here's what we're saying. We want it to close. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tony Del Plato. My partner Gina Nigro and I run a bed and breakfast in Interlake, and recently some guests returned to our B&B after a long weekend of visiting the Women's National Museum, the Erie Canal, vineyards. They're real hikers. They went in all the parks. And the second day, they came back and said they couldn't believe the smell. And I think everyone here understands the smell. The current plan, I'm not going to repeat what everyone else has talked about, is inadequate. It accepts the status quo without using your imaginations to understand that we're talking of the impact of generations that this landfill will have upon. Reduce, reuse, recycle. We've heard that stuff since we were all in school, probably. Composting needs to be a priority. The county has the power to choose the path forward. No lining will prevent PFAS from leaking into the groundwater eventually. On March 13th, I received an email from the village clerk saying that SMI refused the trash from someone with an Interlaken address. And I thought, what? How can that be? So I called Mike Reynolds, and I asked him, Mike, can you get away with this? As most of you probably know, Mike's a man of few words. He said, it's their dump. We proceeded to organize a meeting with Kyle Black and Mark Benjamin, Mayor Rich Richardson, Mike, and myself. We met at the Village Hall. I secretly recorded that meeting for my own purposes. For those of you who may not know, it's legal in New York State. By supporting the extension of SMI operation, the County Board of Supervisors would be failing their constituents in the responsibility of representing their best interest. Seneca Meadows Waste Connections are colonizing our homes and lives. Their property, their profits are more important than where we live, where we raise our children. The EPA has allowed polluters to turn communities into sacrifice zones, and that's what Seneca Falls and Waterloo may become eventually. Residents breathe, drink, and eat carcinogens. Sacrifice area is a common problem throughout the country. Pennsylvania noteworthy. For generations, many Native American communities throughout the country have been turned into sacrifice zones by energy and mining interest. Honeywell Incorporated poisoned Onondaga Lake. The Onondagas cannot eat the fish in the lake. The lake is sacred to them, but many corporations don't care what your race or values are. SMI hired 2 expert witnesses, doctors, to study the threat that SMI poses to the health of residents and workers in the area. They concluded there is none. Peter Mattias, editor-publisher of Waterfront Blog, accused Doctors McTire and Hoffman of bungling the facts. He charged them with cherry-picking the data. Look at the Finger Lakes Times, November 9th of this year. It's up to the Board of Supervisors to sort through the information before them. Let's look at other industries that have used experts to justify and defend their toxic products. The tobacco industry, decades of scientists covering up and lying, was eventually exposed. The oil and gas industry CEOs followed the same game plan of decades of denying human activity contributing to global warming and the climate calamities that we face. They were exposed by their own studies. The NFL, doctors denying for decades the effect of concussions had upon players and the battering they suffered. The impact of the concussions was detrimental to their health and the well-being of their families. Analysis have uncovered the data of doctors who were well paid to deny the harm this profitable support caused players. The scientific method is an important tool to understand reality, but it is not infallible. Research findings can be manipulated and data corrupted.
I'm sorry, sir.
A critical eye is needed.
You're out of time.
I'm about to wrap it up.
You're out of time. I'm sorry. We got a lot of people. I got to give them a chance to speak, so.
All right. I would just like to say one last thing. On a clear day, you can see SMI from Ovid. Think about, in 15 years, how high that's going to be and how thick the stench is going to be. Thank you for this opportunity.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Diane DePasquale Haggerty, and I am a resident of own property in Seneca Falls. Seneca County and the surrounding towns and Finger Lakes has a proud 220-year history, of which my family played a large part. My ancestors helped dig the Erie Canal. My grandfather and father both worked at the Seneca Knitting Mill. My father had a law office in Seneca Falls for many years and was Seneca County judge for 25 years. I was born and raised in Seneca Falls, and my brother and sister and I are property owners and taxpayers. I reviewed the Seneca County Waste Management Plan before the supervisors this evening. Although well-written with some interesting statistics and assumptions, I find the plan deficient and the ironies glaring in many aspects, of which I'll highlight this evening. The plan's goals for Seneca County are threefold: establish a feasible approach to solid waste management, reduce amount of solid waste generation through Seneca County, alternative future options for waste management outside of current landfills, as landfills are finite resources. I've never heard of them called that. However long their lifespan is, what an understatement. I first note that there's no mention of the Seneca Meadows, the dump in the plan, and how it will reduce solid waste, despite it being the largest generator of solid waste in Seneca County. Additionally, I want to point out that the dump only receives 50% of Seneca County citizens' solid waste. The other 50% goes outside the county to regional landfills. So Seneca County citizens aren't even disposing of their solid waste in Seneca County. New York City, 40 New York counties, and several New England states are trucking their solid waste to Seneca Falls, and the dump is growing larger and larger, destroying lives and the environment. Where are those cities, municipalities, towns' solid waste management plans to stop generating waste and sending it to the dump to pollute Seneca County? Where is the dumps plan to limit or stop accepting the 2.17 million solid tons of solid waste per year and asking to process more via extending their operating permit? Oh, of course, there is not one for the dump because this would reduce their profits for the Texas-based company Waste Connections, in total disregard for the damage they're doing to Seneca County. The result of the plan is a host of 23 actions implemented over a 10-year period. However, when you closely review these actions, you see that they are nothing more than data collection, education, voluntary participation, recycling efforts, which are noble. The plan states very clearly that Seneca County is implementing the status quo and offering a number of actions to divert waste from landfills which don't require changes by the DEC. Does this body not see the irony here? Seneca County is maintaining the status quo and allowed to do so because the citizens of Seneca County are not the solid waste producers. 35,000 citizens of Seneca County are not producing the solid waste that's polluting Seneca County. The dump is. I believe that the actions, again, in this plan are noble. But the irony is that they are only for the small number of citizens who reside in Seneca County and are producing only 1% of the solid waste produced in Seneca County versus the millions that send their solid waste to Seneca County via the dump. Seneca County citizens are already absorbing the cost of a recycling program at the tune of $600,000 a year. The plan does not quantify the cost of the plan's 10-year actions. Can the supervisors opine on that? What is the cost? Again, the plan's actions will not address the real cause of the environmental damage: cancer, polluted waters, decreased economic opportunities, decreased quality of life for Seneca County residents, and yes, even death. Not from Seneca County citizens' actions or inactions, but from the direct result of the damage being inflicted upon Seneca County citizens from the dump. The irony here is beyond words. We, our taxpayers, are going to engage in a 10-year plan of solid waste reduction, while Seneca County is going to continue to be polluted and accept solid waste at the dump from New York City, 40 New York counties, and several states who are not limiting their solid waste being disposed of in our county, all of which we have to incur the present and future ramifications of. I have one single step that can be taken to achieve all of the 3 stated goals and beyond of the plan. Denying the pending operating permit and proposed expansion of the dump is the only way to actually achieve any formidable steps in solid waste resolution and management in this county. I respectfully request that the plan not be accepted today and that consideration be given to amending the plan to incorporate measures that would be taken to eliminate the dump and it's actively polluting our community, our air, our waterways, our water table, our watershed, and negatively impacting the community's health. I understand there is a pending request by Supervisor Cronenwetter asking the state to investigate the dump's local impact on the community, the health of the residents, and the toll on tourism and the environment. All of this should be taken into consideration and incorporated into the plan, which it is not.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, you're out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I could go on.
I'm sorry.
I could go on
Give everybody else
with more directly from your plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Jean Gilroy, 1872 Gravel Road, Seneca Falls. I am directly east of the landfill. I have not smelled fresh air in 10 years. I either have pollution or I have deodorant in my air. Now, I'll admit I have very little experience with solid waste management plans. The fact that it's been 24 years since this body last attempted a solid waste plan, it is apparent that your plan amounted to send it all to Seneca Meadows. It's a shame because Seneca County lost 24 years of data collection, which was mentioned tonight, and management of solid waste. I am a member of the Seneca Falls Waste Management Advisory Committee for 2 or 3 administrations. We have made composting of household and organic waste a priority, with lawn waste disposal an added concern. Adding these biodegradables to the Seneca Meadows pile screams, there must be a better way. Our committee took a hard look at the solid waste management disposal plants of surrounding counties of Cayuga, Tompkins, Ontario, and the gold standard of waste management, Delaware County. And I don't know that anybody even bothered to look at their solid waste management plans, which involves sending everything to Seneca Meadows as well. However, Delaware County began tracking their waste in 2007, and they had 28 categories of waste that they charted year by year by year since 2007. Now, I don't know what the board plans to do with this, but I'll admit this plan is weak. For instance, who is the planning committee? What are the start dates of the planning committee? And who's going to trace and implement this solid waste plan for the next 10 years? What is the vision of this solid waste management plan? Alternative waste plans need to be implemented now. As I said, Delaware County started in 2007. Governmental green purchasing, according to the waste chart in your total plan, will not be implemented until 2030. Page 56 of your chart. And it shows the residential food reduction and composting will not start until 2027. Same for yard waste. Anaerobic digesting of food waste won't start till 2030. I recommend that you establish a working committee and then study what other counties are doing. For example, require municipalities to purchase or share shipping equipment and create mulch for the residents. Rewrite the solid waste management plan with teeth and specificity. Status quo is no longer good enough when faced with a behemoth landfill which is belching climate-changing gases and creating cancer clusters. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Barb Reese, and I'm from Seneca Falls. I'm a teacher in the school district, and I also serve with Jean on the Waste Management Advisory Committee for the town of Seneca Falls. And I'm grateful that we have a plan to talk about. So thank you to all of you for making this happen, because I've been here for 24 years and we never had a plan. So I'm glad that we have something to review. When I looked at the data that was shared in this plan, it says that there's 19,618 tons of municipal solid waste that's generated in our county, and 2,186 tons of that waste was diverted. So when I look at those numbers, I saw a diversion rate of 11%. And when I looked at the composition of the municipal solid waste, I see that over 51% is made up of paper and organics, which means that we should have a much greater waste diversion rate than we do. But yet, this plan projects an increase in waste diversion by only 7% in 10 years. So that would get us to about 18%, which is still terribly low. The draft projects that this would be a reduction of about 74 pounds per person in the 10-year period. But I think we can do better than that. And I know because in the Seneca Falls School District, we have a composting program that in the last 10 years has diverted over 137,000 pounds of food waste. And if we divide that by our 1,200 students, they've already diverted about 114 pounds per student. And they didn't even do this during COVID for the 2 years that we were on pause. So I'd love to follow the example set by our youth and raise the Seneca County waste diversion by more than just 7% in our waste management plan. I think we can do this if the plan also includes better assignments in the implementation part 6 of the plan. The draft plan lists working group, coalition, and partnerships, which sound good, but I'm wondering who has ownership and who's going to be accountable for seeing that the work gets done. I'm happy to help. This is really important to me, but the implementation can't be left to community volunteers alone. Other surrounding counties have sustainability or recycling coordinators who oversee implementation of plans. And I'm wondering if Seneca County would consider adding a coordinator, even part-time, who would be accountable for this plan. I know that we could also have a greater diversion rate if this plan included the registration of composting facilities in some of our towns so that we could process our own food and yard waste that we generate here in our own county. And lastly, the last goal on the draft plan says to identify future and alternative options for solid waste outside of current landfills. But I think we should edit this goal to change identify to implement, because our county is ready now for change. We already know what we want, and we all want to rely less on Seneca Meadows, and we need a solid waste management plan that's strong enough to help us get there. So we hope that you all can help us get there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak for a second? Am I in the public?
Can
I'd
you
just like to say, I agree wholeheartedly with her that the residents of Seneca Falls, as Mr. Schmitter knows, you can take your organic waste to Woody's Lane, the transfer station in Seneca Falls. You can take your leaves and debris and everything. It has specific hours, 7:30 to 2:30 every day of the week, and it's available there, and more people should use it. I'd also like to know what Schuyler County's solid waste management plan is. But go ahead, Don, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. My name is Don Kenyon. I'm from town of Covert. I've heard a lot of thought-provoking things tonight. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't think are feasible. I have a different point of view. I would say, as a little bit of background, I was the chairman of the first solid waste committee in this county. That was almost 40 years ago. I worked my butt off on that and got nowhere, basically. It is a tough circumstance to deal with. So anyway, having said that, I had these remarks prepared for the meeting that was going to be at the Three Bears, which had to get canceled, or postponed, rather. So anyway, I'm just going to read that, and this isn't going to take long. So, as I see it, DEC has final control of the majority of the waste stream. Seneca County does not. Right now, that's landfilling, and the exact details of the reasoning for that are not made transparent by DEC. It's just an edict. I wish DEC was here tonight, by the way. They're the ones that these remarks need to be going to. So anyway, meanwhile, DEC invites Seneca County to come up with a new management plan that at best, under present circumstances, is likely to only capture a relatively small percentage of the waste stream. Seneca County recycling is a valuable service, But what percent of that recycling winds up being landfilled due to lack of a market? We ought to have that data. Yes, there may be an opportunity to capture a bit more of the waste stream, but the elephant in the room is still landfilling. That's obvious. And Seneca County has rejected incineration. Now, having said that, it's my opinion that DEC is kicking the can down the road as they attempt to portray the county as having some degree of significant control, which in reality does not exist at the present time. Key word being significant. It's a dictatorship, pure and simple. The anonymous postcard traceable to Seneca Lake Guardian asks Seneca County to do better. Maybe it can, but it appears to me that DEC should do better. I suggest that Seneca Lake Guardian should partner with Seneca County to come up with significant and real-world alternatives rather than be confrontational with an anonymous postcard. Meanwhile, I congratulate the board for the resolution that they sent off recently where they were speaking to the requesting to be party of interest and asking DEC to respond to health concerns. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Timothy Dunlap. I'm from downstate in Hector, New York. I've been to a number of these meetings. Thank you all for your service, where at the end of the day, people scold us for being out-of-towners. I'm from Schuyler County. And I think that's a sick way to look at things because we all live in the Finger Lakes region. We all live in this nation. We all live in this world. This landfill dump was considered a Superfund site at one time, not very long ago. And it continues its operation and is looking to pile more and more garbage on top of a mitigated Superfund site. And you can just imagine what a pile driver, that amount of garbage must be on top of the watershed. And we are on top of a watershed, depending on which way the water flows, and no one knows where the water flows. The water could migrate to Seneca Lake, the water could go to Cayuga Lake, the water could go to Ontario Lake. But this has to be solved. It can't just, as the gentleman just said, the DEC is totally lacking in their oversight of these projects. We have the Ontario County landfill. We have the Chemung County landfill in Lauman. We have the Hakes dump in Corning, New York. And we have High Meadows in Rochester. What a lovely name. This is sick that we, as a civilized nation, as another gentleman said, people from other worlds come here and say, what is the stink? I say the same thing. What is the stink about? I thank you people for your service. It's a hard job. I would not want it for the love nor money. But try and make the correct decision for your constituents, whether it be your local people, your out-of-towners, or just for the sake. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bob Romick. I live in the town of Lodi. And I'm upset that the landfill plan, the solid waste management plan, assumes that Seneca Meadows will remain open, even though it's slated to close. I understand we've spoken, this body has spoken and said maybe our hands are tied. Well, not completely, because we can rescind their local permits. We can raise a stink with the DEC and demand that this landfill be closed. We can do what we can do and I haven't seen this body do it yet. Somebody has in a meeting suggested that we're in a bind because we have to put our trash somewhere. Well, I looked it up. There are 35 municipal solid waste landfills in the state of New York. And do you know how many counties there are? It's not 35 counties.
62.
There are 62 counties in the state of New York. Now, maybe my math isn't the best, but I can tell you that 62 is a lot bigger number than 35. There are a lot of counties sending their trash somewhere else, and it doesn't have to be here. This landfill's a danger to our health, and I don't think it's rocket science. I think we can figure out a way to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on the public hearing?
One last thing, Mike. On Valerie's chart here, it's very interesting that region 1, 2, and 3, they take zero waste. Notice where that is. There's more people in one city block than there is in Seneca County. And as Chuck Schumer says, New York State ends at the Hudson River. So maybe you ought to talk to the DEC and the leadership, because they really don't care what happens in Seneca County unless somebody says something. But I know they're real busy tracking down errant squirrels and raccoons, so they don't have time for things like this. So I urge you to contact the DEC. They are the ones that are going to make this decision.
Mr.
Supervisor
Chairman,
Trout?
to that point, would it be possible for the board to request, maybe even demand, that the DEC come to one of, like, the committee meeting? Regardless of the outcome, it only seems fair that they be required to hold some accountability. And I say that because I've shared with some of you my recent interaction with the state DOT, where we presented a petition that was brought to our town board. And I think, as I've shared with some of you, I've never been treated as disrespectfully or dismissed as quickly. And I think that level of arrogance, maybe as a multi-department infection across state government. And so to that point, I would support Supervisor Cronenwetter's push request. It's up that we ask the DEC to attend one of our board meetings.
I have one more thing. On November 18th, I think it's Monday, and that
Yes.
at South Seneca School, Anthony Prestigiacomo is going to be there, DEC representative for Region 8, and it's a presentation about the HABs. But I know he's going to be there, so maybe could get his ear there too.
Absolutely. If folks could attend that meeting, again,
yeah, I'll be
November 18th, 6 o'clock, South Seneca High School.
That's all I have, Chairman.
Get a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
First and a second. Any discussion on closing the public hearing? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Public hearing is now closed. Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda is open privilege of the floor. If there's anybody from the public that would like to speak on anything else tonight and address this body, now would be the time. All right. I don't see that. All right, we'll go on to approving of the minutes from October 22nd for the special board meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get a motion
They're under
Second.
control. They get hot
Any
and
discussion?
violent and jump up and down. And,
on the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Special committees. Any special committee like to report anything tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I would just
Supervisor
report
Trout.
as a representative to Cooperative, or Soil and Water, that Supervisor Cromwetter already pointed out, but all supervisors are invited Monday, November 18th, 6 o'clock, South Seneca Middle School, Senior High School, for a presentation on HABs. I think you all have the handout. I would also note that, let's see, Ava, is it December 2nd is our annual dinner? So folks, you do have to register for that so they know ahead of time. This is for Cooperative Extension, but note that as well. And it is at Knapp Winery again this year.
Thank you. Any other special committee? Supervisor Shipley, do you have anything you can report on the recent news on the cemetery, the state's first cemetery? Any developments or plans or how that's going?
Yeah, there is a website that you can go to, and we just viewed the results of that today. They're going to be up for a while about what the committee is up to.
Okay.
And right now, they're trying to, I'm going to see if I can get a speaker to come present it to the board where we stand, possibly Senator Mazzolio, who is the chair of that group.
Okay.
But they're looking to fund a revision to the entrance of the cemetery.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. I don't have anything tonight. County Attorney, do you have anything? Thank you. Communications.
Communications 214 through 309 have been received and filed.
Thank you. A lot of communications. All right. First up, we're going to go to Ways and Means, number 12, Supervisor Partee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First up, the Board of Supervisors authorizes amendments to the 2024 Seneca County budget.
Support.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 13.
Board of Supervisors authorizes the amendment to Resolution 217-23 for courthouse security upgrade funding.
Support.
Got a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 14.
Clerk to the Board is authorized and directed to advertise for the public hearing for the 2025 Seneca County budget.
Support.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approve or abstentions? Passed. Thank you. All right. Supervisor Reynolds, you're going to get a shot tonight. Number 15.
Oh, I see. Mr. Heison's in here.
No.
All right.
It's in another country, I believe.
Oh, all right. Number 15, authorizing a contract with the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for the 2024-25 Child Passenger Safety Program grant and amend the 2024 Public Health Budget.
Support.
Got a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 16.
Authorize mental health to issue requests for proposals that addresses the use and misuse of prescribed and non-prescribed opioids in the community.
Support.
Second. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 17, Supervisor Reinhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Authorize an agreement with Day Automations for the Law Enforcement Center door control system. Support.
Got a second? Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 18, Supervisor Borst.
Board of Supervisors approves the abolishing of a psychiatric social worker 2 position and the creation and filling of a mental health clinical therapist position in the mental health department.
Support.
A second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 19.
Revised policy number 102.100, job evaluation management salary system.
a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
Just, Mr.
Supervisor Jeff Trout?
Chairman, or just one question. What is the actual change, Joe? I don't recall this. I apologize.
Supervisor Boris, can you answer that?
I'm trying to remember because we've done so many of these. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Right. Okay, gotcha. All right.
That's just cleaning up
Gotcha.
policies to reflect the new management handbook.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Any more questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Number 20, Supervisor Jeff Trout.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion to approve the appointments to the Finger Lake Regional Airport Advisory Committee as listed below.
Support.
Got a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 21.
Motion to approve the renewal of the memorandum of agreement with the Finger Lakes Regional Land Bank Corporation for 2025 and 2026.
Support.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 22.
Motion to approve the appointment of Adam Cure, Marie Weiss, and Sarah Capelli to the Seneca County IDA Board.
Support.
Second. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 23.
Motion to approve the Seneca County Tourism Promotion and Development Grant Funds to be used for the Town of Fayette Historical Society.
Support.
Got a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 24.
Motion to designate Seneca County Chamber of Commerce as the county tourism promotion agency and authorize the application for matching funds for the program in 2025.
Got a second?
Support.
Got a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Number 25, Supervisor Brownell.
Board of Supervisors designates county property as surplus and authorizes sale by auction.
Support.
Got a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 26.
Authorization for Seneca County Deputy Sheriff Daniel Jacobson of the Seneca County Sheriff's Office, and we attend police
Support.
canine handling, traveling training for December 16, 2024 to January 24.
Thank you. We got a second? Couple of them?
Support.
Yep, we got it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 27.
Board of Supervisors authorized contract with South Seneca Central School District to provide a deputy sheriff for extended school days and violence prevention.
Support.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 28.
Board of Supervisors authorized acceptance of traffic safety grants from the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles, Governor's Traffic Safety Committee for 2025.
Support.
Got a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Any unfinished business? Any new business? Anybody have anything? I got a couple things quick. Did everybody see the email on doing the December meeting? We got some responses, but anybody have any objections about doing the meeting on the 23rd?
At what time?
6 p.m. Yep.
Nope.
Okay, moving on. Then, go ahead, sorry. Yeah.
Year-end board.
Yeah. So, yeah, year-end board meeting. Yep, okay. And then, okay, on the budget we talked about earlier tonight, does anybody have any feedback or any more things they want to discuss tonight, or everybody want to digest it and then go from there? Supervisor Shipley.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the things we discussed in committee was the need for a possible budget sessions, work sessions, to discuss it after everything is in place.
Okay.
Or before everything's in place.
That's amendments.
Okay. So you propose doing that after the next meeting, right? Before the final, on the 10th? Okay. That's kind of the synopsis I kind of gathered from some people, so. Anything else?
Are we talking after committee meeting?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so the intention is next meeting, if anybody has any question, you know, department heads will be ready for questions next meeting. So next committee meeting. So if there's anything else people have from there, but then we can have another meeting after that. But we have to do something before the 10th for sure, to give if any changes we're going to make in time before the 10th. So
So, sorry.
Supervisor Partee.
Questions from the board would be going to the Ways and Means Committee meeting in 2 weeks?
Yes. Yep. Okay. Special order of the day.
So moved?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, could you just repeat that? So what are we doing? After the next, all
So take the homework home
right, gotcha.
and study it. Come up with your list of questions.
Okay,
Next committee meeting, Ways and Means, if there's any questions specific to departments or anything about the budget,
gotcha, all right.
people be ready to answer questions.
So we can participate in the Ways and Means Committee. All right.
No. Yeah, everything's public. So, yep. Supervisor Reinhardt.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, if this is going to be directed at the Ways and Means Committee, is there something that we have to do for Ways and Means to open it to the entire board so it is not a committee meeting per se? I don't know if that's a art question. I don't know how we do it. I just want to make sure that if we're going to do it in the committee setting and questions are going to go to a certain committee,
wondered.
I don't know if there's any protocol that that the chairman would have to open the committee meeting to the entire board, so it doesn't make it a board meeting, is what I'm trying to avoid.
You could do it at board level and just discuss it and make amendments.
But there can be interaction back and forth, and okay,
Always has been.
okay.
Question, you got your
Yep.
answer? Okay. All right. Any other questions before I try this again?
Just to clarify, the year-end board meeting is December 17th, or do you want to do the 23rd that same night?
I think that would be our year end, right? Unless there's anything else. Well, I don't know.
I know we said the 17th, but if you're going to have
Yeah,
it on the 23rd, you could just bump it to the 23rd, but that's up to you guys. For year-end board.
I don't, whatever the pleasure is.
I think if we're going to meet on the 3rd, it'd be better not to meet on the 17th and the 23rd. If we can do it all in one night, I think that's
Usually we only
logistically
have a
easier.
handful of resolutions anyways.
We'll just hold it off for the 23rd.
I think it'd probably be easier to do it in one night.
Yeah.
Everybody good with that then? Okay. All right.
One question.
Supervisor Latini.
Yes, thank you. When are we going to talk about goals and objectives? I mentioned that when I first joined. Goals and objectives, right? Feed strategy, right? I know we've got background checks now, so that's a gap closure. It looks like you're tightening up the personnel, points, simplifying that, getting that stage ready. G&Os for each department, right, generally fit and feed the budgetary spend that you intend to have, right? I think we can all agree you've got like 2 departments, highway and the sheriff's group, that run very well. They require almost no maintenance from our perspective. They're considered possibly, centers of excellence where they have data like the sheriff does every quarter. So we have quarterly, we have monthly reports, we have stats, we have, you know, the sort of the condition of the department. What about doing that with other departments to drive that sort of look for waste, you know, get that routine built, so maybe we don't have to have additional headcount, or we don't have to have additional spend. I mean, we're looking at roughly 8.5%, right, increase. You know, that's, maybe we could cut it to 4%. You know, and I just didn't know when in the cycle we were ever going to do that, or maybe we won't. But generally, I think that is a system businesses use, successful businesses, to really focus their workforce, focus the deliverables for their community. And, you know, maybe we talk offline. Lodi, I'm still getting feedback in multiple departments. The residents are not being serviced. So we continue to add resource, we continue to add headcount, and are we getting the output that we think we're getting? So it's not good or bad, it's just adding a little structure and some objectives. And will we ever set time to do that as a group?
Something we need to work on for sure.
Okay.
Would you like to come up? Sounds like you volunteered.
I'll volunteer for that,
Come
for
up
the structure.
with
Yes.
something for us to look at. Can you do that?
Sure.
Okay, I appreciate that. All right. Anybody else? Anything else? Special order of the day, Supervisor Borst.
Second.
Got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Have a good night.
Mike,
Thank you.
I can't believe it, Mike. You don't have no executive session?
Don't forget to turn off your microphones.